I was there. I don't have to listen to it.
This week's show because it was a disaster.
When you live in a beach resort, it's easy to forget whether you are playing or working. On each week's show, we settle in with a cocktail and try to figure out if there is a difference. This is Day Drinking on Delmarva.
I was like, hey, you want to do this live? And I'm like, sure.
I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I'm Tony Russo, no relation and still getting used to the new intro. And you're listening to Day Drinking on Delmarva.
I was thinking to myself, I was wondering if you were going to interrupt again. And then, of course, when it's playing, it is like we're both muted, so I can't even say something over top. But
I was thinking, remember not to interrupt, and then I did.
Yeah, the sure whatever comment. Is,
it's so anyway. Yeah. Welcome to Day Drinking on Delmarva, a show about life and culture on the Delmarva Peninsula. I am Tony Russo, no relation, as I said, and we're coming to you live from the Crowbar, an excellent secret spot in Berlin, and from Del Mar, which is neither excellent nor secret. All sorts of fun stuff to get to today, but before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about our sponsors. Our sponsors each week are, of course, the drinks that we are drinking until you guys send us sponsorship money and or drinks. So what are you drinking today, Todd?
Today, I have a new bourbon whiskey by Few.
I had their gin; it was quite good.
This is quite good. This was a gifted bourbon that was given to us in exchange for, I don't know, I think we did a nonprofit logo for somebody who works for a distributor, and that's how things work at the beach. Is you do things like that and you get booze for it.
Get paid in booze.
The trade is alive and well. So I had a little sip of it the other night, and I'm having some more of it today. And
I'm still on the Fat Boy Punishment Juice. This is, I'd like to pretend that it is lime infused gin, but it's lime flavored gin. But that's okay.
Yeah, same crappy gin that you have had, or no? You have good gin.
I usually have pretty good gin. Frankly, I'm out. I'm out, and it's going to have to stay that way because if I don't go to the liquor store on Friday because I don't want to die. So I either have to find time to go this afternoon or just drink this awful stuff until Monday. Well, I guess until Sunday night, not Monday morning. Certainly by Monday morning, even if I do want to drink, I'll be able to go to the liquor store again.
Yeah, well,
so much stuff to get to today. I'm going to be talking about my interview with an international drug dealer, and Todd, in unrelated news, is going to be talking about his purchase of a drone. But before we get to that, let's talk about our social media insofar as we have it.
We have it. It's on Instagram. We broadcast on Good Clean Fun's YouTube and Facebook page. We do a live thing. You can actually comment. We mostly ignore them, and mostly because
let me encourage you to comment, because we have so few people that we can ignore right now, but we would love you to be one of them.
We're really bad at this, but that hasn't stopped us from doing it for the past decade or more. And but you can find us. And I had this idea, and I think this is a good point to bring it up. We talked last week after the show. First of all, let me say you can find us on Instagram at Day Drinking on Delmarva. Follow us, and we can post up pictures and stories there of what you are day drinking. But I also think it might be worthwhile to put out the call for social media. We talked about it after the show last week that, we could add in some other, short clips or sound bites or ideas. We both have plenty of ideas for podcasts that would fit into the realm of day drinking on Delmarva. Those are the only two things that it really needs to involve. And so if anybody has an idea and you want to do a one-off, I think we'd be at least agreeable to listening to the idea.
Yeah.
And maybe even putting it up as a one-off episode or maybe a regular segment that,
feature.
That's the word that we could do every so often.
Absolutely. We did talk about that. One of the things that's always dicey is the audio. And I think I hurt someone's feelings, and I keep meaning to reach out. And of course, when you hurt someone's feelings by accident, you should apologize immediately. So this is only a week old, so immediately doesn't mean what it means to you, to me. But this person who I was talking about, doing more podcasting stuff with, I had deleted all of the text messages, so I couldn't quite find them. And they reached out of the blue, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Hey, did you ever get your show launched?" And they didn't respond, which means to me, I was supposed to listen to their show and get back to them. And so now I don't know how to follow up that text. Like, did I do something to offend you? No, I'm sorry. Certainly I did something to offend you. Let me know what it is. Happy to apologize. And so if you're listening and you know who you are, just let me know. I didn't mean to not listen to your show. I have been having a week, I think is I've been having a time. And just another quick update. I don't know if I mentioned this on the last show, which is why it's important for me to mention it now. My wife's father actually had COVID. And he's old and he's not in fantastic shape, but it looks like he's on the better side of it. And so I needed to hear a personal story of someone who you're like, oh God, they got COVID. That's it. And then they're like, yeah, they made it through. He's miserable and he's still in ICU, but he's on the better side of it.
That's good.
And just a little something to be hopeful about. It's
sure
not less scary, but at least, hopeful.
Well, this was we were getting into the little bit of pre-show and talking about, and we're going to get to the one cool thing in a minute. But I think that last week we talked about new beginnings, with September being September kind of being a better New Year's. And I just want to kind of continue on that tip. I had been pretty negative about my existence as somebody who films in bars. Well, I think that's just the new challenge that we're going to have to address. And I have I worked on a ton of ideas to continue with the storytelling and continue to be positive. Life is going on. There needs to be more positive stories out there. And apart from you offending people, like the two people who listen,
right?
I think we need to keep that on the forefront, or at least that's what I'm going to try to do.
Yeah, no, I absolutely will agree, which is why I want to talk to you about my one cool thing, which was I got to speak with an international drug dealer this week.
Like a legit drug dealer?
Let me excerpt part of the conversation for you. I said, what's really weird is I'm wondering how you feel about things now that, pot is kind of legal. And he said, as far as I know, it's still not legal to transport 14,000 pounds of marijuana any place.
Wow.
And I said, yes, that's an excellent point. I found this guy doing other research for other things. And I just read some of his story and it fascinated me. And I reached out to him and I'm like, hey, do you want to tell me your crazy shenanigans being a drug runner in the 1980s and 90s? And he's like, yeah, why not? I'm old. He's like, some of the people I sent to jail are starting to get out now, but who's going to come after an old man? And I'm like, well, let's book this interview quick. That way I don't have to worry about it.
Good thinking.
Good
journalism there.
I'm on the stick, but it's always been this case. It's just interesting to have it happen to me where you're talking to this person who's clearly, from his voice, old and infirm-ish. And you're like, wow, not only did you used to be scared of people, but like you've carried a gun and run from the police and smuggled tens of thousands of pounds of marijuana and cocaine all over the country from all over the world. And like, if someone sees you on the bus, they're going to be like, look at that old fuck. He's just sitting there doing nothing. I'm gonna
flip him a quarter.
Yeah, right. It's bizarre. And of course, the same thing happened, I guess, during Prohibition with, that guy used to be a rum runner and blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, fascinating guy, fascinating story. And I will tell you more about that as I am able. But it's something to look out for. I'm going to have a bunch of stuff to say shortly.
That's fun.
And that shortly is actually probably November, I don't know. 19th.
And as we established with your apology, immediate is different for you.
Right.
Shortly is also different for you.
Right. I'm on my own time. I've taken to sending letters to people for their birthdays.
That's great.
My nieces and nephews. I sent them a couple dollars, and I had to write 6 letters today. My hand hurts because September is a heavy month for me. And of course, September is nearly over and all of these people's birthdays have passed. But
it's the added stress of a belated written birthday card message.
Absolutely. And it's just been hanging over me, and I cleared off my morning and I'm like, you know what? This is what you're doing today because I'm tired of not being able to sleep. But I always send them $20. And what I say is that it's the stipend for having to read my self-involved drivel that's barely intelligible.
Yeah.
My godson Charlie, I sent him a note for his confirmation, and he had to have his mother read him the last letter. I mean, he's whatever. I don't have any idea how old he is. My guess is 14-ish.
14-ish is when you get confirmed.
Typically. Right? That seems right. Sure. So I said I'm going to print. And I printed the first 2 lines, and it was worse.
Oh,
it was worse because it looked like there was something the matter with me. Like I was in a home someplace, and they gave me crayons to talk to my friends with. So I decided that I would rather have his mother read what I was writing to him than try and print it. So he got 2 lines of print and then a never mind.
And then just.
And then and then I can show you the letters. They're just my scribble. It's just scribbling. That was to my nephew Joey, whose birthday is. Actually, Joey's gonna get his on time because his birthday is the 28th. But it's also for his baptism, which was 2 weeks ago. So.
Oh, okay.
I feel like I'm in the middle there.
Yeah.
But that's how I've been spending my entire apocalypse is writing letters and annoying my family with them.
Dearest Joey.
I
hope this finds you well.
But I would like to talk more about your one cool thing. So let's hear what you did this week.
I mean, my one cool thing is really just a segue into, newfound reinvigoration for what we do. But we picked up a new drone. We picked up the Mavic Mini. Mavic by DJI is probably one of the more well-known drones and drone companies. And if you're watching online, you can see that it is. I'm holding it up, and it's actually quite small. And the marketing and the whole point of this drone is that it is actually under 250 grams, which is what the what's the airplane FAA aviation?
Yes,
the FAA says that you need to register. So this is still technically a toy, and it gets around, and it's super light. I mean, obviously it's 249 grams, so it's but the technology behind it is much more advanced than the drone that I've had previously. And although it's a fair price, it's still a couple $100. And I'm not saying that you have to spend a couple $100 for inspiration, but there is something about getting a new bit of equipment or a new thing in whatever it is you're doing to help draw some inspiration out. So
you want to be worthy of it. You want to say, well, I'm a professional. Now I have to act like one. Right. I'm a professional when I invest in my equipment and also when I use my equipment. Yes. And so just investing in it is no longer enough. You have to also make good use of it. I want to talk about the FAA and the FCC for just a second, because I was working on this story when I was leaving the Bayside Gazette, and I never finished it, and I don't really care to. But I wonder whether the FAA is less qualified for the 20th century than the FCC. Or not. So if you don't know, the FCC was supposed to regulate radio, and then they invented television. The FCC was, completely not prepared for television, and they have never been prepared for any new technology.
Right.
So if you think the FCC had trouble switching from radio to television, you should see what they're doing to the internet. We know that, net neutrality and things like that, those are all out the window. And most of me wants to say, well, it's just because they're evil thugs trying to get their way. I mean, whoever's running the FCC used to be, I think, the president of Comcast or Cox Media or one of them,
Former
but it's
executive, past lobbyist.
Right. Absolutely. And the FAA is still they were minding their own business. They're not as bad as the FCC, who all had computers and knew that there was such a thing as the internet and still didn't make any plans to deal with it.
Right.
But the FAA, they were minding their own business. And then, people started flying the remote control planes. And they're like, okay, well, if you have a plane and it's big enough, you should register it just so we know that that it's a thing, that you have to be careful. We don't want some idiot with a rocket accidentally taking out a plane, like a pretend flying in the air rocket, or because I've covered, because I'm a rock star reporter, I've covered I've covered actually several, remote control aerial events. And there are planes that you could put a monkey in for sure, a small monkey.
Right.
And they fly them around, and so I can see that. And then the drones just made their little brains break. Again, they are really concerned with international air traffic and safety, and making sure that pilots aren't drinking on the job.
Right.
And then one day somebody said, we should be in charge of the drones. And I'm sure the chairman of the FCC was like, what are drones? Like bees? Right. And so we have this really kind of hodgepodge. They're like, well, let's make some, weird rules. There are, the FAA has a rule about how much of your land you own. And they, didn't used to have to do that.
Oh, right.
Right. How far up does my property go? I know how far it goes north, south, east, and west.
Right.
But how far up does it stop being my property?
Yeah.
Because I should be able to send a drone. If I could send it straight up, I should be able to technically send it to the moon. Do I own between my house and the moon? And they're like, well, no, you don't own where and so I think it's not 7 miles, but it's a lot. It's very much like the ocean is 7 miles to international waters or something like that, or 17 miles. I feel like there's a 7 in it.
Sounds right.
And so there's a number. There's a number for how up above your house you own. And it goes down depending upon how, for instance, I almost said the Twin Towers. We don't have those anymore.
Oh, man.
So let's pick a different building.
Really doing well is sticking with the
that was just so up until September 11th, the Twin Towers, before it was the Empire State Building or the Sears Tower, but the Twin Towers were just iconic enough that you'd be like, well, how far above the Twin Towers does it go?
Right,
even when it wasn't the
measure, yeah.
Right, even when it wasn't the tallest building in the world anymore, it still was a good guess. So the Empire State Building only owns 12 feet above their roof, and I own more than that.
Yeah.
But not above their roof, just above my own roof.
Right.
So I'm sorry to derail you with my FAA. This has been FAA talk.
FAA talk with Todd and Tony.
I'm awful because if you say one thing that I know a little bit about,
we're a couple of minutes in.
Off we go.
That's what day drinking's all about. The interesting thing is like the weight restriction, that somebody set that makes sense in some capacity because they probably said it. It's like, well, what if I had a balloon for a science experiment? And they're like, you don't have to do that. And at some point they just determined that 250 grams was light enough that it's not anything that they have to worry about. So
they didn't think anybody would ever have the technology to make 250 grams go up that high and stable. That's
right. And
the
then
beginning and end.
Yeah, and then they're just like, all right, the drone company is like, challenge accepted.
You've seen that lacquer on books? That's technically as thin as we can make plastic. So now we're just talking about, how expensive the nanotechnology is to make a 450 foot wide, 330 foot long, 8-gram airplane.
Yeah. Right.
But it's the difficulty, and again, I want to be a little empathetic. The difficulty with trying to make rules for new technology is you're always trying to make rules based on your predicted use of it. Right. Instead of trying to set like a general kind of, okay, this is how we approach things. You're like, okay, well, what's dangerous? 259 grams. Okay. That's our floor for flight.
Right. Well, yeah, because anything else is just going to plow through it, and and then it's a non-issue.
Right. And so I'm sorry. So you use this, or you just bought it?
We just got it. And it's funny because I've always been sort of opposed to the drone boom when it first started, when it first took off. Just because it's like, you can only have so many slow motion videos of like rooftops or something like that. But it was really cost prohibitive to have what I wanted, which was a couple, was basically a cheap crane shot. It's amazing when you go back and you watch, a very iconic shot from Forrest Gump. I always, and the opening scene follows this feather as it comes down, and it's just above the trees and it kind of trickles down and that sort of thing. And then comes to land next to Forrest Gump on the bench. The amazing thing is that that whole shot, probably cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in just equipment, a huge crane, operators, all of this. And then the fact that I can spend a couple $100 and recreate that shot at as high a quality in a fraction of the time, obviously a fraction of the expense. I don't know, that's where it's a point of entry for me. Is like, oh, okay, cool. I need an establishing shot of any of the clients that we're doing business or work for. And I can get up 15 feet and I can pan down and, I'm done. And it's something that fits in the palm of my hand and it's nice and easy and balanced and high quality video. And that's perfect. And then the other part, that I like kind of gets the inspiration going and kind of gets the wheels turning is that this has like a floor sensor. So without GPS, you can actually fly this with practice. You can actually fly this indoors. And, again, when we were up in DC shooting yesterday, I wish I didn't have it. Want to make sure that, very capable with it first, but there's an application there. They have a 2-story dining room and, a lot of the talk about restaurants wanting to open, it's about, capacity and distance and that sort of thing. But more conversation is coming out around like volume of space, like a 2-story dining room is going to be better than, a little bistro.
Then the low ceilings we all used to love and designate as cool places.
Right. Which also, like in the 70s was like, all of the buildings office buildings that were built for energy efficiency are now like, oh, those buildings are going to kill you now. But, to be able to fly inside, basically, I think is a fun and unique idea to kind of it's like, we're walking to the balcony. We're walking to, oh man, we're all of a sudden we're over top of the balcony and looking down on the second floor. And this is,
well, when drones were first in use for social media type things, I was actually involved, and I didn't to say I liked or didn't like them is the wrong way to start it. So let me put it another way. Once people had these drones, they thought that was the only way they were allowed to make videos.
Yeah. It had to
when you only have a hammer,
yeah,
everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
And I would get assignments like, go do the drone thing. People like drones.
Mm-hmm.
And no, people like good videos. People like well-told stories.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, the marketing mind of so many people, especially here, but certainly all over the country, was like, people like drones.
Yeah.
They like drone footage. They like good drone footage. They like wisely used. They like when you can make something happen. They're like, people are stupid. They want to see the up part.
Make it go up.
And yes, that's true for an audience, for a significant audience. There are people who will watch any kind of drone thing that you show them because they still believe in magic. And God bless. That's not the audience that's interesting to me. Like, I want someone who wants to participate a little bit in the story rather than just one of the difficult things when you're doing podcasts, right, is, a lot of times they'll say, well, people aren't really paying attention, so you have to just tell them when to listen. Yeah. But I don't want to. That's, there are excellent sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that I want to write for one, and you can do sitcoms very, very well. I think that history has shown it, and there are geniuses who write on sitcoms. But when you give into the notion that you have to just do something because it's what people like, that's where you start to do things that are just less interesting. It's like, I, Mr. Marketing person, have decided that dumb people like this. I think everyone's dumber than me, so you do this.
Yeah.
So the dumb people will watch it, and I don't think that's true. I don't think any of that's true. But it's part of unfortunately a lot of the marketing culture. And I think when you do something like, as you were saying, when you do something interesting, when you use a drone as a tool, or when you use Facebook Live as a tool, or when you use
sound design, it's
absolutely
such a big part of it.
And making the story and then telling the story with what you have available is different than saying, okay, what stories can we tell around flying a drone over Ocean City for an hour?
Right. I'll tell you what stories you can tell, because it was an article like in some regional paper. It popped up in my Google News feed, and I want to say it was a Pennsylvania local paper, but that might be my bias creeping in. And the article was this. It was, hey, did you miss your trip to Ocean City? Here's a YouTube link to some random drone shots of Ocean City. And
I wrote for that audience for a very long time. I know that. I think the people who write for that audience, and I was part of it, which made it very difficult. You have to be able to get something that other people will buy about Ocean City. You have to have the kind of contempt for people who visit Ocean City. That was even hard for me. I'm like, I don't hate people enough to say this kind of stuff to them.
Right.
I respect that they have jobs.
I mean, you hate people plenty.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. But there's a contempt that comes with marketing Ocean City a lot of times that is just, it's beyond what I'm capable.
Yeah.
There's a disrespect for people's time and attention, and it's unfair. Like, lots of people love Ocean City, as I've been told many, many times, and lots of good, normal people, primarily good, normal people, like to come to Ocean City, and to treat them like idiots is A, unfair, and B, likely to attract more of the idiots and less of the nice people and send them all up to freaking Rehoboth. Like, when you're bleeding in intellect in a population, you don't want to make yourself look dumber.
Yeah.
And that was always, there's a good way to say that Ocean City is a fun place to be for nice people who like to have interesting times.
Right.
And this drive to make it look like it's still 1940 there, and that, you'll come to the beach, moron, look at the ocean, moron. It's offensive. It offends me. It offends my sensibility as someone who would like to make friends with people and who would like to convince people rather than pander.
Right.
I don't know if you noticed, I don't pander a whole lot.
I have noticed that.
I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
Only because when I get pandered to, I really want to burn the whole world down. I mean, that's why I can't watch commercials, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the challenge for me right now, and and trying to avoid what I've taken away, to avoid what I have done in the past, which is showing the low-hanging fruit and the stuff that I love of people having a good time and people I know, and like good-looking people having fun is easy, right? So we're entering into this world of let's like I say, I'm a storyteller. Let's actually be a storyteller and find the interesting in the individual, and you're right, and to not pander to
just respect your audience.
Yeah. And realize that, I mean, I've always felt that I want people to watch my video. Like, it's only happened a few times, but I want people to watch my videos to the end, and there's nothing more gratifying. And this has only happened a couple times where somebody says, is like, oh yeah, I know that you put there's always a little something at the end, there's a little outtake, or there's a little, and or that they open it up and they actually listen to the music and the dialogue and how it works together. And, there's nuance there. And I think that makes for a better experience.
It certainly makes for a better creative experience. Like, you're doing your thing and you don't have contempt for your audience.
Right.
And that's going to come through. And what's unfortunate is what tends to get passed around is stuff that is a little contemptuous, I think.
Yeah.
Of the audience. And again, unfortunate. Speaking of contemptuous of the audience, I wanted to tell this one quick story, and I see we're running up against the clock, so we can go a little bit over, but I was sitting in the backyard not too long ago, and my neighbors play music loud.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, I apologize. Every time it's too loud for me, I apologize for all of the, Black Sabbath I imposed on my neighbors in the middle of the day. It's just part of life in a neighborhood. Does not bother me. And I don't know if they have, like, some people are like, I have eclectic tastes, and listening to their eclectic tastes, I'm starting to think that eclectic means no. Like, I don't have any preference. I'll put on any, like, the example that I like to use is, like, one day it's Cypress Hill all day. The next day it's Garth Brooks all day. Ooh. The next day it's the Go-Go's all day. It's just like no rhyme or reason. Right. It's like different people live there. And it might be, maybe it's a hostel and I didn't even know it. Right. But recently someone was playing some sort of rap type music.
Right.
Or R&B type music that I'm not real familiar with and don't tend to listen to. It doesn't bother me though.
Right. Not familiar with, hence you calling it rap type music.
Right. Yeah. Was that the clue?
That was the clue.
So I was outside all by myself listening to it, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And then my wife came out, and I'm like, this music's not so bad. And she's like, yeah. And I said, what language is it? And she said, oh, that's English. And so I officially have passed into that music that you don't even understand what they're saying. It's all gibberish. I didn't mean it that way. I really thought that it was music in a different language, and I thought that it was pleasant.
Yeah.
And even after she said it was English, I could only pick up the occasional word.
Yeah.
So I'm a billion years old.
You are officially the old guy.
Yeah. At least I didn't hate it because I didn't understand it.
Well, at least you didn't say, oh, I can't stand this. I wish they would sing in American, and Kelly would have to correct you and say, well, that actually is English.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I don't like things that are bad, but lots of people like things that are bad. I'm better than them. I don't know what I'm thinking.
To bring it full circle, like we do probably most shows, it's like, listen to what you like and be happy.
Absolutely. And don't be, I mean, it's like I said, just people mow their lawns when they feel like it. The lawn mowing bothers me more than anything else, because that's like a coughing disease when I'm trying to record.
Yeah.
But the music, at least I can be like, okay, well, they're out playing music today. I'm not recording today.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get to me because I know that they don't do it all the time. But when they do, I think it's maybe they have like a day off or something, and they're like, we're going to just sit outside. They have a pool. They have a nice backyard. I mean, they're nice people, I guess. I don't know them.
Yeah.
But they play the music very loud, and I don't mind it. And so that's why I'm not old, but I don't understand it. And so that's why I'm pretty old.
You got one foot in and 1 foot out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I think, all that I have for today. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, until next time, remember, at the beach,
it's happy hour whenever you say it is.